Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the All We Do Is Talk podcast. I am Nathaniel Moody, joined by my friend and host Isaiah Harris, and the time is here. Week one has arrived. It is time to enjoy football. And in the spirit of that subject, we're going to start off with our division previews, give you the biggest storylines, and our season predictions. How you doing today, Isaiah?
We're finally back. Been away for a while. Life was crazy, but we're back. And even better, football is back. Let's get this.
Football always brings people together. All right, so we're going to start off. We're going to go through the AFC divisions. We're going to tell you what our predictions are, give you the biggest storylines, and we're going to work for what we believe will be the worst division to the top division. And number 4 out of 4 will be the AFC South, won by Jacksonville last year. Who was in bottom place? Houston Texans.
Yeah.
This division feels pretty chalk to me, Isaiah. How about you?
I guess the question is Jacksonville for sure. We both probably believe Jacksonville will win this division. The real question is how high are you on Tennessee, and which team do you believe will be the seller team? So how do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
Tennessee has the capability of making this closer than it probably should be. It's because how much do we really are all in on trusting Jacksonville right now? I think that's really the big question. They won a playoff game last year, a game they probably had no business winning, but the Chargers going Charger. So that may have added a little bit of extra roses and petals to what we think the Jacksonville Jaguars actually are. And Tennessee really got crashed and burned towards the end of the season last year. They were starting Josh Dobbs in big playoff games because of Brian Tannehill's injury. So, Tennessee could be a little bit better than what we last remember them, and Jacksonville could be a little bit worse. But Jacksonville has the biggest offseason addition, and that's Calvin Ridley, which I think is going to which will give them the edge over the rest of the teams in the division. That is one of the most underrated moves of the offseason. Calvin Ridley wasn't hurt. He wasn't dealing with any injury problems. He's not recovering from anything. He was just being dumb and gambling. That's the only reason why he was even available. That's the only reason why he's on this team. He went for a 6th-round pick. He slots right nicely into that high usage wide receiver one role, while Christian Kirk is slotting into a slot role. It fits everybody back into the places they're supposed to be. So I think I'm expecting a big year from Jacksonville. I think they'll win the division relatively comfortably, but Tennessee might make it annoying on them in the end.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Jacksonville, easily. I do believe Tennessee will be feisty under Mike Vrabel like they always are, as long as they keep Tannehill, Henry, and the few Hopkins / Treylon Burks, who Burks has been struggling with some injuries during camp. As long as they keep those guys healthy, Vrabel will scheme up the defense, and they'll put up enough points to be feisty, to steal enough games. They're not going to probably be a playoff team, but I think 7 and 9 wins is kind of where they're going to be stuck in. They're stuck in purgatory. And as for the seller, I just think it's going to be Houston because they're just so young and they're so young everywhere, especially on defense as well. They're good on the offensive line, surprisingly, even though the Tyus Howard injury kind of sucks for them. But C.J. Stroud's not going to be protected as well. The receivers are okay, not great. And I just wonder if they have enough to be competitive in that AFC at most of the time. And the Colts, they're a tier above. They're a hair above the Texans. They're rookie quarterback, rookie head coach. I do think that the coach being an offensive coach is going to help them. Hopefully they can get that offensive line going again. But other than that, it's going to be this is the worst division in that conference.
Yeah, it's going to be long seasons for the Colts and Texans. I will say the motivation for the Texans to be good is higher than it is for the Colts. The Texans gave up their 1st-round pick this year to move up to go get Will Anderson. Arizona could be walking away with Mr. Marvin Harrison Jr. to add to their quarterback instead of the Texans adding him to their quarterback who he used to play with if the season doesn't go right for them. So I think he'll have that. I think he'll have that defense in order. I think he's got more talent in that defense than we think, and I like Will Anderson a lot. So I'll say Indianapolis will be the seller just because I think they want to be. The Jonathan Taylor situation is going on. There's clearly not a lot of vibing going on in that locker room. How do you feel about the locker room is the biggest question. Anthony Richardson, I think he was the most raw of the 1st-round guys. so he may need the most time. But like you said, he's probably got the best offensive coach. Although with respect to Frank Reich and Bryce Young, he's got one of the better play callers of these guys, and he could have a good offensive line, or it could be bad like it has been. So I think the motivation for the Colts will make them the sellers, but Houston might be too young to be able to get out of that role as well.
Not much more to be said about this division. It's a one playoff team division.
One playoff team. It'd be shot if they put in a second team. That'd be very disappointing for the rest
The
of the
Titans
league.
won 9 games and had the tiebreaker. That's
They lost
probably
to a
what it
stupid
would be.
score. Like that's how close they were to being in the playoffs with a fourth string quarterback. All right, so we will move on next to this is I think the West is probably worse than the East, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the AFC West. Obviously, the division championed by Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs, and the Super Bowl champions, who are dealing with a little injury contract adversity right now. So their start of the season could be a little bit interesting. Then you got the second place Chargers. Third place was the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
And last place was the disaster known as the Denver Broncos. And that
You mean the team you picked to win the Super Bowl last year?
To be in the Super Bowl. One of my freezing cold take from a year ago. That Nathaniel Hackett was one of my worst calls that I've ever seen. He wasn't ready for that moment. And I guess we'll start with them. The Denver Broncos, they have probably the biggest overall change of the offseason in their division with the Sean Payton hire. Nathaniel Hackett gone after 1 year. Completely different expectations, different offense. Obviously, they're not going to move on from Russell Wilson yet just because they financially can't. They have to try to save him, and that's what they're going to try to do here. They're getting Javonte Williams back. I think Vic Fangio is gone, so that's going to be a little bit of different look for their defense that has been very, very, very good over these last couple of years with Vic Fangio, and they have arguably the best cornerback in the league, Patrick Surtain. Do they bounce back? Jerry Jeudy's already dealing with injuries. Tim Patrick's out for the year already. It just seems like the typical Broncos thing since they've won that last Super Bowl are going on again.
Yeah. So, how you want to break this down? So, I guess I don't have much to say about the Broncos because they've already got hit by a bunch of injuries before the season even started. I thought they had a chance, but the injuries and Russell Wilson are a little scary to me. I thought the Raiders had a chance to be surprising, but recently we found out that Chandler Jones is messing up the locker room chemistry, and a Bill Belichick disciple and locker room chemistry issues go hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly. So do with that what you will. So I guess I expect. Who do you think is going to be the worst team in this division?
I think it'll be the Raiders. I think they have the worst head coach, in my opinion. Because Sean Payton is obviously one of the better head coaches in the league based off his reputation. So, yeah. And the Raiders, although they have motivation to win, I just think they have the least amount of complete talent to do so. I was like, Darren Waller's gone. They replaced him with Jacoby Myers. Darren Waller hadn't been super productive for them anyway, but Jacoby Myers is a downgrade. We don't love Derek Carr, but Jimmy Garoppolo is a downgrade. And so maybe they've gotten that defense together finally, but I've never seen the Raiders have a good defense, so why should I expect it now? I think they'll be the worst team.
I don't think it matters, but I will go with the Broncos only because of Sean Payton. I think Jimmy Garoppolo and Russell Wilson are a crapshoot because Russell Wilson can be inconsistent and Jimmy Garoppolo can be injury prone, so don't really trust either of those. I like the weapons on the Raiders so much better, but their defense is terrible. So I expect Denver's defense to keep them in more games, give them a better chance than the Raiders' defense that might have some good edge rushers if they could get Tyree Wilson. Is that his name?
Tyree Wilson.
Yeah, he finally played at the end of the preseason. They could probably get a good pass rush, but that secondary is a mess because they've been throwing darts at it forever, and everybody just, for one reason or another, doesn't work out. So, yeah, I'll take the Raiders to finish in last and the Broncos third. If Chris Jones and Travis Kelce are issues for the Chiefs all year long, that can open the door for them not to win another division title. But I will say they're safe up top, even though I realized earlier today that they did lose Orlando Brown. So he's not the greatest tackle, but, good left tackles are hard to find. And yeah, Travis Kelce and Chris Jones are two of their three best players. So if you take two of the three best players off any team and you think they're going to win the division, then you're saying their quarterback is going to carry. And Mahomes could do it, but that's going to be tough. But I think the Chargers are going to be stuck in perennial second place because they have a quarterback just as talented as Mahomes. They don't have the organizational support or head coaching or luck, because they're always hurt a lot, to ever come over the top of the Chiefs for now. So I'll go Chiefs, Chargers, Bronco Country, let's ride, and then the Raiders.
Yeah, I think we're in lockstep on that one. The Chiefs, now, the worrisome things, like, I don't think Chris Jones didn't practice. He didn't play in preseason, none of that. Guys who do that, I saw a stat average about 7.5 games per season when guys completely set up all of training camp and all of preseason. So it's not likely Chris Jones is going to be making a gigantic impact for him this year, just based off of history and how things are going right there. And that's a massive, massive loss. The Travis Kelce one's the issue, though, because he's the thing that he's the pin that they built their offense around the stratosphere globe that is Patrick Mahomes, obviously. Travis Kelce does all the ball movement things. He moves the chains, he gets the big downs, he scores the touchdowns in the red zone. And so to have him out, on top of, obviously, the Tariq Hill trade didn't cost them a championship, but having Travis Kelce was a good way to help overcome that. Now you lose both of those guys for an extended period of time. Patrick Mahomes will have to be God, and he's perfectly capable of being that. So I'm not going to doubt him and Andy Reid to figure that stuff out. So I will take them to win the division. Chargers, I expect to have a very Chargers-like season. They'll look great until Halloween. Then post-Halloween, things will start to go wrong, and they'll finish somewhere in the middle. Maybe they make the playoffs, maybe they don't. But unless Jones and Kelce just don't factor into the season because of different things going on, I think the Chargers are solidly in second place, and the rest of the division will go chalk as well. All right, so we can move forward to the second best division in the AFC, and a very, very quality rebuild of the division after Tom Brady finished dominating it and ripping it to shreds for 20 years. The AFC East is back. We got two teams playing in prime time to open the season, Bills and Jets on Monday Night Football. We should see at least 3 good teams, and New England, I expect to be better than they were last year off of the simple fact that Matt Patricia isn't calling plays. So there should be a few competitive teams here. Isaiah, what are your initial thoughts?
It's pretty chalk to me here. The new cellar dwellers in the AFC East, the New England Patriots, kind of like the Tennessee Titans, but unfortunately playing a tough division. So being scrappy and stealing wins and being annoying to the teams, playing spoiler for your season is going to be a far cry from what they used to do in their primes. But they're 6. They have a lower floor than Tennessee, in my opinion. But they're a 6 to 11 win team if everything broke right.
They have a higher ceiling as well. So
yeah. So Bill Belichick will get the defense right. They actually have a real offensive coordinator this year in Bill O'Brien. Who knows the Patriots way, so he could salvage Mac Jones because he coached him at Alabama, I believe, too.
Yeah.
But I still think they have no chance but to settle for the cellar and be the 4th place team. I think at 3rd is where the Jets come crashing down into reality. They could make it to the playoffs as a 3rd place team. The conference is just so tough that I'll have to see it to believe it. I like some other teams like the Chargers. I failed to mention I believe they have a better chance to be a 2nd place playoff team, but we'll round that up at the end. But I think for the Jets, I mean, they've been talking a lot, and I like the talent that they have, but they have a weak offensive line and an old quarterback. So, and when we were kids, we saw this story play out before. Green Bay quarterback comes to the Jets. They start off nice, and they still ended up becoming a failure. So, I mean, their schedule is tough. It's a very tough schedule. If they fall into a hole, the New York media will get on them, and that's the scary part.
No caves in New York.
Yeah, can't hide from them in New York. And then, secondly, I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I like their talent. And I think the only question mark they have, and they brought in Vic Fangio to make the defense even better, the only question they have is how long until they could get Jalen Ramsey back, which would probably slow them down in the first half of the season. if they could keep Teron Armstead healthy because he's known to be hurt, and if they could keep Tua healthy because he is known to be hurt. So they have a left tackle problem, a quarterback problem, and a cornerback problem, and they're all injury problems. So I like the coaching on offense and defense. I just hope they stay healthy because I actually enjoy watching their offense. And then I just think Buffalo. I got to see people overcome them to beat them. I don't think they're the. I think they've missed their window,
Yeah.
and they're kind of gonna have to rebuild this team up. Hopefully, they keep Stephon Diggs in a box controlled for the season, and hopefully he doesn't nuke up the season with wide receiver shenanigans. But I believe Dalton Kincaid could be big for them. They got to run the ball. They got Dalvin Cook's younger brother, and they've got
Damian Harris.
Harris from New England. They got to run the ball with someone not named Josh Allen to keep him fresh, keep him healthy, and they'll be fine. They might not win the Super Bowl, but I think their floor is 9 wins. Their floor is 9 wins, barring crazy catastrophic injuries, which has happened to them, and they've still overcome it. But I just think it'll be Buffalo, Miami, the Jets, all three having a chance to make the playoffs. And if things broke right, New England can make the playoffs. All the teams in this division can make the playoffs. I just don't see it because they all got to play each other.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start with where we agree, and that's at 1 and 4. I expect Buffalo to win the division. Still, they have the best quarterback. They have the strongest baseline for what their abilities are. They know themselves the best. It'll be interesting to see how they work in a 2 tight end system because they desperately need a consistent second option behind Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis is just too boom or bust at this point. Dawson Knox hasn't proven he can be that guy. So maybe Kincaid's that guy. It'll be very interesting to see how they use him in the passing game and stuff like that. And we'll see how he blocks as well because if Buffalo's going to be able to run the ball, 2 tight end, 12 personnel sets, they're going to need Dalton Kincaid to be able to block. And at number 4, New England. They just have the least amount of talent, and it's hard to pick a team that's just trailing the other 3 teams. I'd say pretty significantly when it comes to talent. The reason why they're still a threat is because their coaching should be improved. And we saw them be in New England can fall into 10 wins as long as their roster isn't being a disaster. But where we defer is at 2 and 3. I'm going to put the Jets up at 2 and Miami at 3. I just can't trust Miami to stay healthy the whole season. The quarterback, the left, like you point out, all their premium positions, even guys like Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips at the edge positions, those guys are always hurt. That is just how those things are. Jalen Waddle and Tariq Hill are both little guys. Those are potential injury situations as well. It's just hard to imagine for 17 games that all of their important pieces stay healthy. They've already lost an important piece off the bat. So I struggle to consider that being an option, which is why I think Miami will miss the playoffs this year, despite thinking they'll have a pretty good team. If they stay healthy, they can win the division. But I just can't see them staying healthy for all 17 games. So I'll put the Jets at 2. I trust the Jets' roster stability a little bit more. Obviously, their defense should be better. They have arguably the best secondary in the league. They added Will McDonald to add to that pass rush. They already had a decent pass rush with Quentin Williams and those guys. It's like the Jets have a good solid foundation. Aaron Rodgers just has to not be bad. Like, he has to be significantly better than Zach Wilson, which hit the worst of Aaron Rodgers should be better than Zach Wilson. So I'm expecting that upgrade as well. I think the Jets will be a 10, 11 win team, and I think they'll be in the playoffs comfortably.
Okay.
All right, so we can move on to arguably the best division in the NFL. This division could easily be having 4 top 10, 11 quarterbacks. That's how strong this division can be. Well, it's 12, 13 quarterbacks. We'll see how Kenny Pickett looks. It's the AFC North. Obviously, the Cincinnati Bengals have won that division the last couple of years. Their roster talent is just so superior to everybody else's. That's what it's been the last couple of years. None of those guys have gone away. Joe Burrow looks like he'll be healthy for week 1. We're expecting Cincinnati to be right there competing for the AFC title game again. Baltimore is interesting because when Lamar Jackson's healthy, Baltimore has generally been the best team in the division. They're going to win 11, 12, 13 games if Lamar Jackson plays them all because that's just how dynamic he is as an offensive player and threat. But he hasn't been healthy these last couple of years. He got fresh ink, though, big new contract and big new weapons, Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers, those guys, and a new offense. So we expect Lamar to be playing in a little bit more of a traditional offensive sequence as well. We will see how that goes for him because it's not proven that he can be that guy. Most people think he has the talent to eventually be a strong passer in addition to being a great on the move runner type of quarterback. But really, it's going to come down to how does Lamar Jackson incorporate these weapons into their offense, and can they add a more consistent passing element? Because that's really what they've been missing. Defensively, though, I'm very nervous about them. I don't love what they have in pass rush. Marlon Humphrey's already been hurt in their secondary in camp, and they don't really have anything outside of safeties in that secondary. So that's where I struggle with Baltimore defensively, but I still expect them to be very good, and I'm actually going to pick them to win this division. I think Lamar Jackson plays all 17 games. Joe Burrow coming off the calf strain, I think they'll start a little bit slow and finish second. So I'll pick Baltimore Ravens to win the division at number 1. And then here's where it gets iffy for me. At 3 and 4, the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The organization you trust versus the organization with the more talent. That's really what it is. Cleveland's got a better roster across the board than Pittsburgh does. They should have a better quarterback. Like, they should have more comfort in their offensive scheme. Their offensive line still good. Run game still good. Receivers have talent. I like the Cedric Tillman addition for them as a wide receiver 2 option. Cleveland should be better than Pittsburgh, but I cannot. It's hard for me to pick against Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh should have a good roster. Their guys should be healthy. I like what they've added at the Herbig. Looks like he's going to be a good pass rusher for them. They paid Highsmith. T.J. Watt is capable of leading a top 5 defense on his own by his production. So this can go a couple of ways here. I think I'm going to pick Cleveland. I think I'm going to trust Cleveland's talent to win out at the end. I think all these teams in this division win at least 9 games. I think that's the floor for all of them, barring catastrophic injury. But yeah, Pittsburgh and Cleveland, those are going to be some competitive fun games.
So you're going Cincy. No, you're going Baltimore, Cincy, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. I'll tell you one thing. I do agree that all 4 of these teams will probably have winning records off of what division are they playing this year? I can't remember.
That's a good question. I don't know.
If they're playing, I don't think they drew the AFC South because I'm pretty sure. I think the NFC South drew the AFC
Pittsburgh's
South.
playing San Francisco opening week, so they may have the West.
Which is not a great. Now that they've added that random extra game, it makes it harder to think. But Pittsburgh didn't finish at the same standing as San Fran, so You're probably right about that. Yeah, I do think these are all playoff teams as well. Like we said about the AFC East. I agree with you. I've got Pittsburgh in the cellar, which is why I believe we're both saying that everybody's going to be above 500 because that's just
we know Pittsburgh will be. So that's the floor.
At 3, I'm actually going to go with Baltimore.
Oh no! It's their window's closed too.
I think it has. I just think they're going to have to use this year to iron out the kinks in their offense, and that's scary. That's scary. So I'm going to use the lack of continuity there to ding them a little. At 2, I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh wow!
Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow coming off the injury, a little rusty. One time last year is all right. That's a good thing. That's okay. You could get away with one time. A second time, 2 years in a row. I just think they'll start off a little slower, and I do think that the contract talks for Burrow and Higgins and Chase will start to, breed locker room dissent, minor locker room dissent, because they all deserve to get paid. So they all have arguments to get paid, but I just think they're kind of where the Niners were last year, where it's like, wow, we got a lot of good players to pay, except they have to pay a quarterback, which changes the dynamic there. And at 1, I'm gonna go against my better judgment with the Cleveland Browns. They have the best offensive line in the division. They have probably the best pass rusher in the division. Probably have the best corner in the division. Could possibly have the best quarterback in the division. Wish they had better receivers, but do with that what you can. But I'll take Cleveland, Cincy, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and they all might be one win separating them in the end.
Yeah, I expect it to be a competitive division for sure. Man, that's a lot of trust you put in Cleveland. I ain't seen trust like that put in Cleveland in a long time. That's a lot of eggs in the basket of the Cleveland Browns. But I agree with pretty much everything you said. Like the talent on Cleveland, it makes sense for a team that can win the division. You just hope they should have a certain type of floor with the talent they have. The defense finally has to be good for all the investment they put into it. They put so much into that defense, so much money, so many draft picks to try to make that defense decent, and it always comes out mediocre or worse. So if the defense shows up, I think that changes the dynamic for them, and also obviously the big X factor: how does Deshaun Watson look? All right, so do you want to go through and pick your conference playoff teams? I mean, yeah,
Uh,
pick your the order of your playoff teams in the AFC.
I'm gonna go with. This is so tough. This is so tough. This is so tough. I'm gonna go with the Jags as the 1 seed off of the
Wow.
schedule. Kansas City 2, Buffalo 3, Cleveland 4, and this is the hard part right here because
Yeah, the wild card's going to be the hardest part.
I'm just gonna throw 3 darts at it right there. Chargers at 5, Cincy at 6, Miami at 7.
All the quarterbacks to get in. Justin Herbert gets his spot. Joe Burrow, the 2020 quarterbacks fill up the wild card spot. Okay.
Actually, pause. I'm gonna take Baltimore over Miami. I'm gonna take
Okay.
Baltimore over Miami. I'm gonna take Baltimore over Miami.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start with mine. I'll go bottom top this time. So at number 7, I'm going to go with the Jets, Jets to make their way into the playoffs. Think they'll win 10 plus games, and Aaron Rodgers will find a way to get them in there because they have a talented team to do so. At number 6 and 5, we're going to go similar teams. I have the Chargers at 6 and the Bengals at 5. Those would be the best second place teams in there in the for the wild card spots. And at number 4, I'll go to Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm not quite ready to trust them to make that leap this year. I think they probably need a year of managing expectations before they make a jump like that. But they're the healthiest team because everybody else decided to get beat up. They could come out of nowhere and take that spot. I just got to see their defense. At number 3, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills. I think the Bills have kind of, like you said, kind of plateaued in what their abilities are. They're still going to be 10, 11, 12 wins, but I don't know if they're going to look like the top team, the top contender that they've looked like these last couple of years. Von Miller's going to start the season on IR, so that's already hurting their pass rush. Like, you think at some point, like, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer slow down a little bit with their age and stuff, like, in their injuries and those types of things. So I don't know if I trust Buffalo. They're a little bit of an older team with some guys who can be a little bit beat up. So they'll win the division, but I don't think they'll be a top 2 seed. At number 2, I'm going to take who's that? Yeah, the Baltimore Ravens, division winner. They're going to come out of the blood path of the best division in the NFL. I think they'll be better for it. Lamar Jackson in the MVP conversations, and Baltimore right back to being in contendership. And number 1, Kansas City Chiefs. Until they show me that they aren't the best team and Mahomes can't do it, they can do it. So I'll take up Kansas City as the 1 seed.
Okay. We'll save our conference prediction for our award, our final award prediction show. But that's it for this AFC. I'm just going to say I'm happy that my team plays in the NFC.
Good luck to the AFC quarterbacks, absolutely.